chance and go to Baltimore. Well, here we're still in Baltimore, which is, what, some 48 years later. Oh, a lot of things that happened at that time. Our children have come along. First being Kathleen, 1942. Oh, followed by Patty and Jimmy, Claire. I think Claire preceded Jimmy. Then Teresa and Johnny and Gloria. So the tribe built up to 7 of us. With the Waterman the Steamship Corporation, very, very interesting job. I was, well, a traffic manager, I suppose, is what they called me. And, of course, the sound of war was quite prevalent at that time in 1940, 41. Of course, we all know from history that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, 1941. So 1942, registering for the draft, this, that, the other thing. And all of the different steamship services were discontinued because the government immediately seized all vessels to be used in the war effort. I then became operating manager for the company in Baltimore, which involved, I suppose, anything and everything that ever had anything to do with the shipping business. We had at one time during the war, that is Waterman, assigned to us 125 ships, which the company operated. Now, Waterman had offices in Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Norfolk, Savannah, and Jacksonville, around the Gulf, Mobile, New Orleans, so that these vessels coming to and fro might be worked in any of those port areas. But Baltimore was very, very busy. And I was very, very busy. I was deferred by reason of the work I did, which entailed many, many things relating to the war effort. I often thought about having some regrets in not having been in the service, but I feel that the contribution that I made during the war was just as great as those that were in the service, perhaps other than those that were at the front subject to the fire of guns and the like. It was a 7-day-a-week job from early morning until the evening. Always something to be done. I remember one time we had 6 ships in the port requiring all kind of efforts to get the ship unloaded first and then loaded, then manned, then supplied with foodstuffs, providing fuel oil, all of the things that were necessary to operate a ship. So, as I said, much was happening. I remember one time we were living down in the Brooklyn area of Baltimore at that time, and the bathroom was on the top level. We had a nice little place, kitchen, dining room, living room, 2 bedrooms topside with the bathroom. And I remember one day having to lather my face 5 times before I was finally able to get and shave, because the phone kept ringing incessantly. So, as I say, much was to be done. But after all, there I was home with the family, and a lot of millions of others, you know, that were overseas and the like. So, but as I said a moment ago, I feel that my contribution, and I've been told many, many times, was very great during the war effort. Well, when the war ended, we resumed commercial operation, intercoastal service, coastwise service. And it was in 1954 when a gentleman by the name of Malcolm McLean made an offer to Waterman to buy the Pan-Atlantic line. Well, the Pan-Atlantic line was a division that ran coastwise, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, down and around Tampa, Florida, New Orleans, Mobile. And after the sale was made, I was approached by Mr. McLean and offered the opportunity of going with him or staying with Waterman. I was assistant manager at that time. I gave very, very much thought to it. McLean, who incidentally had been a trucker, he went into business on a shoestring in 1932. And when he bought Pan-Atlantic, he sold his trucking business for $10 million. So that was quite an accomplishment for him. Very, very brilliant individual in transportation. So I decided to go with McLean. Well, it wasn't 3 months later that he approached Waterman and sought to buy the remaining end of the business that Waterman retained. And this came to pass in May of '54. So I became then manager of the Baltimore office, which embraced everything. Feeling pretty proud, but for me to become manager, they retired Mr. Judkins, for whom I had extreme fondness. I looked to him like a father. But he had, I think he was 67 years at the time. So there I was, manager of the Baltimore office. Well, I'm not in that job a month or two when I was approached by another gentleman whom I came to know pretty well, who had just been made president of the Cotman Company. Cotman Company had been was a stevedoring and steamship agent company that had been in existence for some years, and Johnny Delcos had just been made president. And he came to me and he said, "Jimmy," he said, "I've been told by the board of directors to seek out someone 10 years younger than myself who would ultimately succeed me." And he said, "I thought of you." Well, this was somewhat shocking, first, to wonder why he would think of me. But again, came to mind what Mr. Judkins had said: always do the job. Stay with it regardless of what the problems might be, that others might not find you, as good as you think you are, this, that, and the other thing. And particularly what he said, others will seek you out. Well, sure enough, here's coming Johnny Delcos. Not that I had any problems with Sealand, which it became known as, or my job as manager in Baltimore. He said, "Jim," he said, this was in June, I suppose, he said, "you don't have to make a decision promptly." He said, "Heck, you could wait till the end of the year." Well, for 5 or 6 months, I suppose, I did nothing but think about the subject. And I don't suppose that after I made a decision, I don't suppose anyone could possibly have put a question to me that I had not thought out. And finally I decided, well,